Elias had lived most of his life in silence. His small farm sat far from the nearest town, surrounded by dry earth, stubborn weeds, and a few tired trees that barely offered shade. The house was nothing more than a wooden cabin built by his father years ago. Most travelers ignored that lonely place, and Elias had grown used to a life with no visitors, no noise, and no surprises. Every morning he woke before sunrise, collected water from the nearby creek, fed his old horse, and tried to coax life out of the dry soil. His days looked the same, and he expected they always would. He had no wife, no children, and very little money. The people in town often whispered that he would spend the rest of his life alone, and Elias himself had stopped hoping for anything different. But one evening, while the sky was turning gold and orange, something unusual happened. Elias was sitting outside repairing a broken tool when he heard a soft knock on his door. It startled him because no one ever came this far without a reason. He wiped his hands, stood up slowly, and walked toward the sound. When he opened the door, he found a woman standing outside, an Apache woman, young but with tired eyes, dust on her clothes, and a quiet strength in her posture. Elias froze for a moment, unsure what to say. The woman did not step forward. She simply stood there, breathing heavily, as if she had walked for miles. Her voice was soft when she spoke. She asked if she could have water and a place to rest for a while. Elias, though nervous, could see she was exhausted. He nodded and stepped aside, offering her the cup he kept near the table. She drank it slowly, closing her eyes, as if the water brought life back into her body. Elias watched her carefully, unsure if she needed more help or wanted to leave after drinking. But she remained there, calm and silent, studying the small cabin as though she wanted to understand the man who lived inside it. Elias finally asked where she came from, but the woman didn't answer directly. Instead, she looked at him with something like curiosity. She introduced herself as Naira. Elias could tell by her posture and the confidence in her eyes that she was not an ordinary traveler. There was a quiet dignity in the way she sat on the porch, warming her hands near the lantern. Elias felt awkward around her. He was not used to talking to anyone, especially someone who seemed so strong, yet so tired at the same time. As the evening grew darker, Naira told Elias she would sleep outside. She did not want to disturb his space. Elias tried to offer her the single bed inside, but she refused kindly, saying the porch was enough. So he left her a blanket and returned inside, though he did not sleep much that night. He kept thinking about who she was, where she came from, and why she had arrived at his forgotten farm. Early morning light crept across the ground as Elias stepped outside. He found Naira already awake, standing near the fence and watching the land with a thoughtful expression. She thanked him again for water and rest, but her voice carried a weight that made him feel like she wanted to say more. Elias asked gently if she was running from something or someone. Naira didn't deny it. Instead, she explained that her people wanted her to choose a warrior as her mate. The elders believed a strong man was necessary for her future, but she did not agree. She did not want someone who valued fighting more than peace. She wanted someone who would understand her, speak kindly, and live without violence. Elias listened quietly, unsure what her story had to do with him. But as she spoke, he noticed she kept looking at him with steady eyes, as though she already knew something about him. It made him uneasy because he could not imagine anyone choosing him for anything important. He was just a poor farmer who struggled each day to earn enough food to survive. Naira walked a few steps closer and told him something unexpected. She said she had been searching for a man who did not let pride or anger guide him, someone who could offer a peaceful life, even if it was simple. Elias felt confused, and before he could ask why she was telling him all this, she said the words that stunned him completely. She said she chose him to be the father. Elias blinked, thinking he misunderstood. He felt the ground shift beneath him. Why would she choose someone like him? He shook his head quickly, trying to explain that he had nothing to offer. He had no wealth, no strong body, no important name. He was not brave like the warriors she described. He told her she must have made a mistake. But Naira stood firm, her expression calm and certain. She said she did not want wealth or strength. She wanted a man with a good heart, and she believed Elias had that. Elias felt heat rise in his face. No one had ever said something like that about him. People in town only saw him as the poor farmer who kept to himself. He never imagined someone would see kindness in him and call it valuable. He wanted to believe her, but he also feared disappointing her. What if he was not the man she thought he was? Naira stepped back and told him she would give him time to think. She did not push him or ask for an answer right away. She turned toward the horizon, where the sun was rising over the dry hills. Elias watched her, feeling something deep inside him awaken a feeling he had not known in years. Someone believed in him. Someone saw something worthy in him. All day he worked on the farm with a distracted mind. Every time he tried to focus on a task, he found himself thinking of Naira's words. He wondered why she had traveled so far, why she trusted him so quickly, why she looked at him with confidence when he barely believed in himself. As he dug in the soil and repaired his fence, he kept imagining what life would look like if he accepted her choice. But then, fear would return. What if he failed? What if she expected more than he could give? Naira spent the day resting under the shade of a tree, quietly watching him work. She did not speak much, but her presence was steady, like she already belonged there. Elias noticed she observed everything from how he took care of his horse to how he talked softly to himself while fixing tools. Her eyes followed him in a way that made him feel both nervous and strangely proud. That evening, they shared a simple meal of beans and bread. Naira thanked him again, though Elias felt he did very little for her. But she told him she had seen enough to understand the kind of man he was. She said a person's worth was not measured by wealth or strength, but by the way they carried themselves even in hard times. When the stars appeared in the sky, Elias found himself walking alone near the edge of his field, thinking deeply about everything that happened. He had lived alone for so long that he almost forgot what it felt like to be needed. Naira's words echoed in his mind, again and again. She had chosen him out of all the men she could have asked. It felt unreal, impossible, yet sincere. As he walked back toward the cabin, he saw Naira sitting quietly near the lantern. She looked at him without pressure, without expectation, as if she trusted him to reach his answer in his own time. Elias sat beside her, the night calm and still around them. His heart beat faster than usual, but he found a strange comfort in her presence. The silence between them was gentle, not heavy. Elias did not speak his answer yet, but he felt himself moving closer to something he never imagined his life would hold a chance at belonging, a chance at a future he thought was impossible for someone like him. And though he didn't say it aloud, one thing was clear inside his heart. Naira had changed his lonely world in just one day, simply by choosing him. Elias barely slept that night. He kept turning from side to side, hearing Naira's calm voice in his mind. She had chosen him, not by accident, not in confusion, but with full confidence. He kept asking himself the same question. Why me? He had lived 40 years, believing no woman would ever look at him with interest. He had convinced himself he was too poor, too simple, too quiet. Now suddenly, someone strong and proud had stood before him and said he was the man she trusted. He felt unsure, but also grateful, in a way that warmed his chest. By sunrise, he still had no clear answer, but something inside him was slowly shifting. When he stepped outside, he found Naira sitting by the fence, already awake. Her posture was steady, as always, but her eyes softened when she looked at him. She didn't ask for his decision. She didn't even mention the topic. Instead, She simply nodded and said good morning. Elias appreciated that. It gave him room to breathe, think, and understand his own feelings. They ate breakfast in comfortable silence. Elias noticed how Naira watched the land, noticing every detail: how the wind moved through the dry grass, how the horse stamped its hoof lightly, how the sun touched the hills. She belonged to nature in a way he never understood before. She looked like someone who could live anywhere and still stand strong. After breakfast, Elias went to fetch water from the creek. He carried 2 wooden buckets, one in each hand. Naira walked beside him without speaking, but her presence made the long walk feel shorter. When they reached the creek, Elias bent down to fill the buckets and caught Naira studying his movements. Not the way someone judged strength, but the way someone admired quiet effort. It made him feel seen, not for what he was missing, but for what he simply was. Before they could start their walk back, a distant sound broke the calm. Naira looked toward the noise with steady eyes but did not seem surprised. She told him softly that men from her group must have come looking for her. Elias felt worry settle into his chest. He knew nothing about Apache traditions, but he feared these men might take Naira away or accuse him of wrongdoing. The sound grew louder until 3 Apache men on horseback appeared near the creek. They stopped a few feet away, their faces serious and unreadable. One of them, taller than the others, asked Naira why she was here and why she left without permission. His tone was sharp, but not cruel. Naira stepped forward calmly. She held her ground and told them she had made her choice. The men exchanged uncertain looks. They asked if she understood the responsibility. They reminded her of the warrior waiting for her back in the village. She shook her head firmly. She said she did not want someone chosen for her. She wanted someone she chose. One of the men turned toward Elias, studying him with cold curiosity. Elias felt his throat tighten. He wanted to speak but could not find his voice at first. He was not a fighter. He had never stood against anyone before. He lived peacefully, avoided conflict, and kept to himself. But now, someone he barely knew, yet felt connected to, was standing beside him, trusting him. That trust pushed something awake inside him. When the man asked if Elias was forcing Naira to stay, Elias finally found his voice. He said quietly but clearly that he would never force anyone. The man looked at him, surprised by the calmness in his tone. Elias felt his hands shake slightly, but he stood straight. He said Naira was free to leave or stay as she wished. The men kept looking between them, as if trying to understand something unspoken. Naira then spoke again, this time with more strength. She said the farm belonged to a man who did not shout, did not fight, did not treat anyone badly. She said Elias had shown her more respect in one day than many men showed in years. The men fell silent. They may not have understood her choice fully, but they respected her confidence. After a long moment, the tallest man nodded slowly. He told her the decision was hers to make, even if unusual. They left after a few minutes, riding back toward the hills. When the sound of hoofbeats faded, Elias let out the breath he had been holding. Naira turned to him with a small smile, her first real smile since she arrived. She told him he had shown courage, even without raising his voice or fists. Elias felt warmth spread across his chest. He had never thought courage could look like calmness, but Naira made him believe it. As they walked back to the farm with the water buckets, Naira began telling him the rest of her story. She explained why she had chosen him, of all people. Months earlier, while hunting near the ridge, she had seen him helping a lost child from town. The child had been crying, and Elias had comforted them gently. He had carried the child on his shoulders, speaking softly, keeping the child calm, until they reached safety. Naira had watched quietly from the distance. That moment stayed in her mind. She remembered the kindness in his voice, the patience in his movements. She believed that such gentleness was rare and valuable. Elias felt embarrassed hearing this. He had not even known she was watching. He told her he was just doing what anyone should do for a frightened child. Naira shook her head and said not everyone would do it, not with that level of care. That was when she decided he was the kind of man she wanted for her future. For the rest of the day, they worked together on the land. Elias taught her how to feed the horse and showed her how to fix a broken fence. Naira proved quick to learn, and she moved with a natural grace that made the work feel easy. But underneath the simple words, something deeper was growing. A bond. A quiet understanding. As evening approached, Elias finally gathered the courage to speak about the choice she had offered him. He told her he was still unsure if he was worthy. He said he feared he would fail her, that he did not know how to be what she wanted. Naira listened patiently. She didn't interrupt. When he finished, she told him gently that no one was perfect. She didn't want perfection. She wanted someone who cared. Someone who tried. Elias looked at her, the golden light of sunset making her features glow softly. Something inside him settled. He realized that fear had controlled him for too long. Maybe it was time to trust someone. Maybe it was time to believe he could build something better than loneliness. Slowly, carefully, he told her the words she had been waiting for. He said if she truly trusted him, then he would try, he would do his best. Her eyes softened, and she nodded once, as if she expected this answer all along. The next morning, they traveled together to her village. Elias was nervous. The ride felt long, and every part of him wondered if the people would reject him. But when they arrived, Naira held his arm lightly, giving him silent strength. The elders listened to her decision. Some were surprised, some doubtful, but none questioned her right to choose. Naira stood tall, confident, and Elias realized she was far stronger than he had imagined. By the end of the day, the decision was accepted. Elias returned to his farm with Naira, beside him not as a stranger, but as someone beginning a shared life. They walked through the dry land that no longer felt empty. For the first time in years, Elias felt the future had opened its doors. He had someone who believed in him, someone who chose him not for strength, wealth, or reputation, but for heart. As the light faded, Naira placed her hand gently over his. She told him he didn't need anything grand to build a future, only honesty, kindness, and patience. Elias felt peace settle inside him. His lonely world had changed forever. Not through chance, but through choice. Her choice, and now his.